Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give it a second to let everyone into the room. All right, so let's get started. Good afternoon. I want to welcome you all and thank you for coming to the 32nd annual trade show. We're very excited about it this year. Virtual, very different, but still great nonetheless. And thank you for coming to this seminar, How to Attract and Retain Talent. We have a great panel set up for you. So if you have any questions, what I ask is that you put them in the Q&A feature, which is located at the bottom. The panel will be able to see your questions and answer them accordingly from there. So without further ado, I want to introduce our moderator for this seminar, Rita DiStefano. She is the Director of HR Consulting at Portney Messenger Pearl and Associates, and she is also one of our fantastic board members. So we're very lucky and happy to have her at this seminar. So without further ado, I'll let Rita take over from here.
Thank you, Ariana. I am very honored to be here today, and I want to welcome everybody to our HIA trade show and the breakout session that is how to attract and retain good talent. I want to congratulate all of you for tuning into this webinar and this presentation because it is a very important one. It is very challenging times. How do we attract and how do we find good employees? And more importantly, some of our members haven't seen their employees for 3 or 4 months. And how do we retain them? How do we keep them? What do we do to maintain a positive culture within an organization that makes employees want to stay? And in this kind of a challenging environment that we're all in, it's even more difficult to offer the support that everybody needs, and everybody needs support on a very different level. So we're so honored today to have 2 wonderful panelists with us who have a lot of experience in hiring and in running businesses. I want to thank our panelists for taking the time to come, and let me give them both a short, very short introduction, and then we'll get started on these questions, which I'm very much hoping will help all of you out there, give you some kind of an aha moment, because these are very, very different times in hiring, and you not only need to have a new technique, which I hope we find out about today, but you also need to know the compliant way of hiring and all of the questions that go along in the HR world. So we'll talk a little bit about everything. So I want to thank, first of all, and welcome Alex Borg. You want to wave to us, Alex?
Hi, everyone. How you doing?
He's the Vice President of Sales and Underwriting for Borg Insurance Agency, which, Alex, you're continuing your family's legacy.
That's right.
In your local insurance agency. But in addition to that, Alex is very involved in several trade associations that educate and provide professional service to businesses in the construction, real estate, manufacturing, and retail industries. Alex, we're looking so forward to your knowledge and contributing to this important topic. The other member of our panel is Jacqueline Gurnay, who is the founder, hi Jacqueline, the founder and owner of the Alternative Board. Jacqueline dedicates her time to helping business succeed and developed the effective hiring process using state-of-the-art technology to help businesses of any size find the best employees. We are really looking forward to hearing more about that. I'm going to start first with you, Alex, and ask you a question that I think everyone is interested in. How are you attracting talent, and what technologies are you utilizing to maximize the efficiency of this process?
Sure. Well, firstly, thank you very much for having me, as one of the panelists. I appreciate the opportunity to share this information with the rest of the HIA. So we're in a new realm of how to hire, and we are finding that applicants are not moving because of any one particular reason, but we are seeing that people move from leadership to I guess to be coached by other more capable, more qualified leaders in organizations. So if you are a boss and just driving your employees and saying, do what I say because I'm your boss, people are less likely going to stay at your organization. You know, people want to be attracted to opportunities where they can learn, where they can grow their skill set, where they can feel part of a culture. So the way we attract our new talent is by giving them an opportunity and an environment where they can learn, they can grow their professional knowledge, and they become more valuable to me, and thus I can compensate them more, and they feel fulfilled in that. So in a nutshell, you know, being an empowering boss rather than a positional leader, we're just saying, I'm your boss, do what I say, is really where you're going to see value when it comes to your employees being very efficient in their work, but also being interested in working for you.
That's a very interesting answer, Alex. And I am so very, very much into positive culture within an organization. And it sounds like when you empower your employees, that is something that makes them feel a part of the organization and wanting to do more for you. So that is excellent advice. So what do you think then, once you have these people and you're giving them the opportunity, what cultural nuances are you implementing to keep that talent at your firm? You said something about empowering. Are there special training programs? Are there all kinds of perks that come with not only them coming in to do their job, but feeling good about doing their job?
Sure, absolutely. So of course we're huge in education. The industry is changing tremendously, especially with the regulations that we're seeing come down from Albany with the executive orders. So by staying abreast of all that information and transmitting that information downline to our staff, it empowers them to be knowledgeable when they're talking to their clients and the people that they service. But also it's giving them an opportunity to broaden their credentials, getting designations, getting higher education. And we pay for that service as part of our organization. And I think that attracts a lot of talent, because in our industry, people want to get either certified insurance counseling designations or risk management designations. And there's many other designations that one could achieve. And it counts for continuing education for licensing purposes. But being that we are proponents for it, that we pay for it, we allow time off for it, it's very attractive to our staff. What I'd also say is empowering is keeping your staff challenged. You know, a lot of employees have routine work to do, processing work to do, and nobody wants to be a paper pusher. But if somebody's challenged, they're going to be much more inclined to be excited to come to work every day, especially when they're coming to work in their living room. You know, so if they're not coming into an office and not having eyes on them and eyes on their work, you want to have them excited for the content in which they're working on. And here's a perfect example. We just made a new hire who came to our firm because she was very pigeonholed in the tasks that she was doing at the old agency that she was working on. And when she came on board, you know, I saw an opportunity to say, let me just CC her on emails that I'm working on an account it's over her head, it's large, it's not the end of the world in the sense of knowledge base, but she's never worked on this type of content before. And just from her being included on all the back and forth, all the emails, the underwriting, the sales process, the negotiations, the client conversation, it really empowered her to say, this is challenging stuff that I want to sink my teeth in. I want to wrap my head around. This is going to make me more a valuable employee to this organization. And she came into my office later in the day and said, thank you for including me on this. I really feel this was valuable to broadening my skill set. And this is exactly why I made the switch. So it gave me validation, and it gave her a challenge, and she was up for it.
What a wonderful example, Alex. I think that's incredible. I think what I'm hearing from you is communication is the key. Even if you think somewhere it's above the head, or maybe something your employee has not learned, but communicating that and an aha moment makes them broaden their mind and grow with the company and perhaps get a better position as they go up the ladder. So kudos to you. And not only did I hear communication, but I heard ongoing training, ongoing education, the fact that you're paying for it, that shows such a confidence in your employees. That's a key part of retaining a good employee. So valuable and
Rita?
helpful example.
Rita?
And I think that I would like to get Jackie on board now, because you probably have an awful lot to contribute to that conversation, Jackie. Why don't I ask you, in addition to what Alex had to say, what are new ways to get employees? We all have, you know, the Indeeds and all of the other technical ways of getting online, but why don't you share with us some of the things you've been working on?
First, I want to say that Alex is 100% correct. People don't quit companies, they quit managers or supervisors. So not only training new employees, but training your managers on how the culture is going to be is really important. So, but you can't train anybody unless you can get them, right? So things have changed a little bit given COVID. People initially were not coming to new companies because of the unemployment situation, where they were paid a lot of unemployment. Now that has opened up some. But the thing that we suggest is using a really good applicant tracking system, one that connects to more than just Indeed and posting on Indeed. Indeed is the big gorilla, but because they're the big gorilla and everyone is using Indeed, and Indeed is simply a list that you would go down, although you can search amongst that list. It's costly to be at the top of the list in Indeed now. Sometimes it costs $600, where it used to be a couple $100 to get to the top of the list for maybe a 10-day time period. So I think if the applicant tracking system is really good, and we have a good one that we use, it will post to more than Indeed. It will post to it will post to Career Builders, Craigslist, Monster, all sorts of different job boards and specialty job boards. And then rather than using a sponsored Indeed, we suggest you use a programmatic recruiting, which is a whole different tool than people may have thought of relative to hiring. But we've all been the subject of something called remarketing, where we type something into Google and we want new shoes, and shoes chase us everywhere on the internet, right? So programmatic is similar to that. If someone searches for a salary, it will do that. It also—
Can you explain what can you spell that? I'm not sure.
Program.
Programmatic.
Matic, spelled just the way it sounds.
Got it.
And it not only does that, but it will take the money. So let's say you're going to take $600. Instead of putting it all in Indeed's pocket, it will take and apply that money to whomever is getting the most candidates. So it takes and moves money in and out in order to get good candidates. So that's one way that you can do them. Also, you need to do, that's for actively looking candidates. You also need to look at those candidates that aren't actively looking. You can do LinkedIn searches. You can call into companies that you might like to have employees from. So Alex could simply call into his competitors if he could get the names, and sometimes you can get the names of people from LinkedIn. you know, if you look up the company and see if he could talk about all the good things to them, and simply ask if they know anyone who might be interested, so it doesn't sound quite so pushy.
So
Right.
you have to do a little bit of detective work.
You do. There are also databases that you can purchase or use a company such as Effective Hiring to purchase them for you. But Indeed has a database. ZipRecruiter has a database that you can actually purchase access to, and then the people that have posted their resume, and you can actually go in and search on those databases for a fee, obviously.
How about how about other avenues, Jackie, that don't cost any money? And what I'm thinking, and Alex, you step in here if you have any experience with, of course, the wonderful HIA and all of the networking we do. We have found some incredible people through just going to a breakfast, a lunch, or a dinner. And I have to tell you that in addition to that, alumni organizations are something that have sorely missed. College alumni organizations are something that are sorely missed. So check into your local alumni. Alex, have you ever done anything like that? Have you found really good people other than the wonderful ways Jackie is explaining to us?
Sure, yes. I've actually tried to recruit several people from my competitors' offices at the HIA, Chamber of Commerce, which I've done successfully, and some people have stayed. They said, you know, I'm not ready to make a move, which is fine. A healthy competition is always welcome. Where I really found value and in my best teammates that I've picked up is from recommendations from my existing employees.
Absolutely.
Yes.
You know, we put it out there for our best employees, like, hey, look, we're looking for a position. This is what it is. And typically they call the people that from the firms that they had left and to come on board here. And they said, this person is really good. We love them. They're a great fit. They love the culture. And 9 times out of 10, we do find value in that solicitation, and more often than not, they come on board here.
Do you have an employee referral program by any chance?
Absolutely do. I was just going to get to that. Yes.
Okay.
We reward the referring person with a bonus. You know, obviously there's strings attached in the sense that the person has to stay on for 90 days. You want to make sure it's a fit and a commitment and things like that. But nevertheless, you can customize it however you'd like to your need or your company's organization. But yeah, our employees, existing employees, when they hear the words on the street that we're looking for someone, they're calling their friends from the old shops that they used to work at, saying, hey, there's an opening, because they know they're incentivized by a bonus. And obviously they know that they go through a training, they go through an interview process. You know, we have a hiring process, and if it's successful and they stick around, there's something in it for them. And I would say I've duplicated that method at least 4 or 5 different times successfully over the last 4 years. So I would say it's very successful for me.
So what Alex said
Jackie.
about having a process, a hiring process, is extremely important. There are some other places that you can look. If you are on the HIA-LI HR committee or get access to that, they swap and share different people. Unemployment is one. There are colleges in the area and you can get into their job boards through your applicant tracking system. We suggest that people do that and tie in. There can be diversity organizations like I Hire Military and you know, women's organizations, and I hire construction of different types. So there are all sorts of different places.
I would like to add that there are also senior citizen organizations.
Absolutely.
That have the most incredible people that have retired early and have decided this is not for me, and you can get them with a very different ethic background
And ethnic.
that comes into, and ethnic, yes, that come into your organization with a very different idea of what they think work is, but they're wonderful. So senior citizen organizations, AARP, we used to have job fairs for veterans and senior citizens and whatever, but I wouldn't Jackie, you would agree, I wouldn't undervalue any of those organizations.
I would not
We can
undervalue
answer that actually
any,
recently.
and there is actually the ability, if you hire people in those classes or people that have been unemployed for a long time, you can get tax credits for doing that as well. So there's
That's
an
right.
incentive for the employer to do that as well.
And let's not forget that there are this United Cerebral Palsy, UCP, on Long Island, and some of the disabled organizations that have incredible people that can do jobs for you within their ability, and they are also extremely reliable. And I think, Jackie, to your point, there are some tax credits for that as well. So
Absolutely.
you really need to,
all levels of disability. So you can have somebody that fell off a ladder, can't get on the roof anymore, but could be a great supervisor for, because he knows the trade, whatever the trade is, you know. So if,
yes.
so yes, there are all sorts of avenues you need to look at.
So you need to be creative. I mean, and everything that you told us, Jackie, is so valuable in, you know, Indeed and LinkedIn and all that. But I'm so happy to hear the suggestions of thinking out of the box, because I think that in this COVID environment that we're in, if you don't think out of the box, you're going to be left in the cold. You really need to think differently. Alex, I have a question for you. And of course, keep jumping in if you think of anything else that will help our listeners hire good employees and retain good employees. But once you hit the boards and you get these great employees and they come on board, one of the things that I have noticed, and I've been in HR for 25 years, is that when you welcome a new employee, very often, we don't treat them as a guest that we would in our homes, offering them a cup of coffee, showing them where the restrooms are and all of that. And I think that what's so important is something called the onboarding process. And I think, Alex, if you could share with us, what does your onboarding process look like? And Jackie, we'll get to you too. I know that you must have some great ideas about that. Do you have a formal onboarding process, Alex? Would you like to share that with us?
Sure, yeah, and that's very important. It creates an efficient transfer of employment from their old firm to the our firm or the new firm that they're at. So the idea that we can do is it's pretty much customized depending on the department or the skill set of the individual. So for the most recent onboarding person that we had brought in, actually fell right into my department. They were an underwriter for me. They had some underwriting background. So the way we did it, we started them off with very simple, easy, kind of get yourself up to date with the technology. We have a formal training program of the technology, a lot of modules that they can pre-recorded, do at their own pace. They can do it at home, which when this newest employee gave her 2 weeks notice, we immediately gave her login credentials to start the training before she even came in. So when she finished her 2-week notice and started with us, she already had some vision of what our software looks like. So that was one, is getting the technology in front of the new employee as soon as possible, even before they're technically starting to work. The other thing I would say is, do a debrief. So day one, how did the day go? What were your pain points? Where did you think you did? What were your strong suits? What were your weak suits? Then do it at the end of the week, bi-week, end of the month, and then so forth. So that way you can follow the track of how this individual has been, taking in the content, taking in the culture, working with other employees, working with other managers. So it's not just the content that you're working with, but it's also the culture of the other people, because there's an expression of, nobody likes the new person or the new guy or new girl who comes on board. we try to debunk all the cliques and all the groups, and I think actually the digital means that we've been putting in place the last 10 months has kind of eliminated that, which is kind of nice. But yeah, having an onboarding process with technology, especially in the last 10 months, is going to be huge. Starting the person off slow with very minimal expectations, and then building up those expectations slowly over time will achieve success and efficiency in the long run. So that's typically how we would do it. We do also partner up rookies with experienced veterans, just to look over their shoulder, to bounce any questions off of. And being that we're in a digital world right now, we use a couple different software. We use Microsoft Teams, we use Slack, we use obviously Outlook, and of course the telephone and Zoom meetings. So all of those applications of technology is just another form of communication. So whether your firm likes to pick up the phone, they like to do this type of dialogue, they like to bring people physically into the office, or just a simple instant message chat via the various softwares that are available. I would poll your community of employees about how do they want to communicate. Some people say, no, it's got to be face-to-face. Other people say, no, I have no problem doing Zoom. And this particular new hire, she said, this is fantastic. We never had weekly meetings. This is great that I get to see and interact and talk to leadership and my peers at the exact same time. And it's an open collaborative effort. Everybody talks, everybody helps in, chips in about problems and nuances. And that really has streamlined the onboarding process. She's been with me now 2 months, and it feels like she stepped right in and is picking up a heavy load that we desperately needed her for. And we're so thrilled about the hire, and I can tell she's thrilled to be part of the organization. So it's a win-win for everybody.
I think I'd like to be part of that organization. You're saying such wonderful things about your organization, but the thing I keep hearing from you, Alex, is communication. It sounds like there's an awful lot of that going on. That is the key. When your people feel involved and you talk to them, whether it be onboarding, whether it be training, whether you want to retain, all of that helps to the positive culture to retain a good employee. Would you agree?
Absolutely. There's a fine line between micromanaging and neglect. So you want to make sure that you're not thumb over the individual, but you also want to make sure that you let that person do the job that you hired them for. What good is that person's salaries if you're going to be doing the work alongside of them? So give the expectations, set the expectations, and let the employee do the work. The only way that the employee is going to learn is if they do the work. If there's a problem, you can address the problem and say, okay, this is how we're going to do it better. This is how we do it more efficiently. And then welcome feedback saying, how did you do this task at your old firm? Is there a way that you know that you can do it better than what we're instructing you to do? Because if you don't hear it from an outsider, you may not know that there's a better way to do it. We're all entrenched in our own organizations. I don't have a boss. I'm my own boss. But that doesn't mean that I can't learn something from somebody who's coming from an outside firm. So we always solicited, hey, do you know something that I don't know? Do you know a better way to do it? Because if you do, I want to implement that for all of my employees. And I think asking that question right up front to a new hire makes them feel so comfortable because it values their feedback as someone who's part of the team, not just an employee.
And that new employee, with all that you just discussed, will become an old employee and help you retain that talent. And that's really what this is all about. It's
Yes.
keeping good people, making them stay for the reason they want to stay. And Jackie, you said it, people don't quit companies, they quit bosses. And having said that, we were started with the onboarding process. Is there anything you can contribute to what good onboarding? That is your welcoming of an employee. That is your saying, hi, welcome to my home. What other techniques besides the wonderful ones that Alex have just volunteered can you talk about?
So, Alex, you're doing most everything correctly, which is good.
And that's two HR people giving you our blessing.
I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
So anyway, the thing that onboarding starts at before somebody has ever stepped foot in your organization with this. Hopefully you have some sort of automated way for them to sign all the documents and do all that crap work, right? What you don't want is them coming in and the first day they're all excited, they've got a new job, and you don't want to sit down and spend the entire day signing documents, going through the things that are required, but certainly not why they came to work for your company. And so you need to keep that in mind. Everyone has an onboarding process, whether they know it or not, and that onboarding process may be what I just described, just signing the documents. But onboarding is so much more, and it actually, as Alex was talking about, there's welcome, and Rita, you know, this welcome to the home, to your new home, from all levels, not only the boss, but also maybe the CEO of the company, sharing of the values of the company and the goals of the company, what we're trying to accomplish. Then there's there's training, and setting up a whole list of training, because we all do things differently in different companies, and training can even be, these are the acronyms that we use here, you know, when we say, what the heck, you know, WTH, that's what the heck is, that's what we mean. So making them feel really comfortable within the organization, putting a mentor together, someone besides their boss that they can call and ask, what's going on? Why is this way? And not feel dumb with their boss. Is
sort of a buddy system.
A buddy system or mentorship, whatever it is, and make that person, give them some reward for the success of a new person. So they're not feeling, oh man, I've got to do this. I have my own job to do. So make them feel incentivized. And that doesn't have to be money, but can be rewards amongst the team. And then taking the experiences of them, making sure, I usually suggest the first week you check in with them each day. Starting the second week, somebody checks in with them once a week. Starting the fourth week, you check in with them at least once a month to see how it's going. You make sure that you, if they're not working out, they go quickly, right? Because if they can't accomplish the things that you set up for them to do in the first couple weeks, don't think that they're going to change their spots.
That's a good point, Jackie. And that leads you to, you know, coaching, counseling, a little bit of documentation, and then out the door. You know, with HR, you need to document everything. That's a very, very good point. Don't hang on to something that may not work out in the future. Because when we talk about retaining people, we talk about culture too. And sometimes people are just not a right fit. And that happens a lot as well. I need to tell a funny story about onboarding. In my days working in corporate America, before I became a consultant, I worked in a manufacturing environment. And I walked through the manufacturing floor, and they were making, I'll call it for the sake of this discussion, widgets. They weren't widgets, they were parts to go into very important pieces of equipment that we were manufacturing. And when I had a discussion with the manufacturer, with the employee who was working in the manufacturing floor, they had absolutely no idea where the widget was going. They had no idea even what the company was making. The discussion was, well, I'm here, I get X amount of dollars an hour, I work 40 hours a week, and here's your widget. So what we did was, and of course you can't all do this because you are smaller companies out there, but you can think about it. We put a film together. We put some kind of a marketing film together. And again, depending on the size company that you have, and it showed what the company did. And that was included in the onboarding process, because now you had an employee that would sit through this, and it doesn't even have to be on the first day. I used to wait until, because we were about 100 people, I used to wait until 4 or 5 people were hired within a certain amount of time, put them in a room once a month, once every 2 months, but at least give them an idea of what they were doing and what the company stood for. And at that once a month meeting, always had the senior member of management come in and welcome them, so that they had a face-to-face, hello, hi, how are you? Because in a large corporation, even within 100 people, some of your manufacturing people or maybe your office people never really get to meet the president, or there is no conversation. So I offer that only because they had absolutely no idea really, and that was the fault of the onboarding, that they needed to know what the company was doing. So I offer that because it was very valuable.
You've heard the story of the dignitaries that visited NASA, and they came upon the janitor and they said to him, "What do you do here?" And he looked at them and he said, "We're putting a man on the moon."
Perfect story, Jackie. There you go. Giving them that sense of belonging no matter what you did, because quite frankly, in every company, you can't do what you do without every single person in that building.
Exactly.
And they need to know that they're just as valuable. I love that, Jackie. I'm going to use that.
Yeah.
Take that. It's a good one.
Well,
It's a good one.
Rita,
I want to ask you.
I was going to say, people enjoy knowing the why. Why are we doing this? You know, what's
Absolutely.
the value we're putting? So that just kind of echoes in the different respective industries, that people want to know, why are we doing this, and why do we do it the way we do it? And that's important.
That's very important and a very valuable, very, very valuable input, Alex. I think that was a wonderful piece of what you need to do, because you also are leading to the culture of the company when people feel part of it. And that's who you are. And that's what you want to portray. One of the questions we did not talk about, and I know that a lot of our listeners might have heard this benchmarking. Jackie, this is to you. What exactly is job benchmarking all about? We've heard this expression.
Okay, so when you look at a job, it takes certain behavioral styles, certain drivers of people, and certain soft skills, as well as the hard skills that you can see on a resume. So what we suggest you do, we use software to do it, is actually go online, or first figure out the key accountabilities of the job. What are those things in your organization that if the 5 things, if the person was really good at them, you would forgive them for all other mistakes that they made. So a good example is a sales person. If they had the top profit, the top revenue, but they didn't get every piece of paperwork done exactly right, you're not going to fire them. You may try to work on that, but so that would be an example of key accountability. So you figure out the key accountabilities, and then you get online and you actually answer questions about what the behavioral styles this job requires, what the soft skills this job requires. Soft skill might be something like teamwork, or it could be something like goal orientation, things that you won't see necessarily on a resume. And you answer these questions. It actually will provide you behavioral interview questions based on what you answered. And it gives you a real good idea of not how a bookkeeper should act, but how a bookkeeper in this company should act, because you're making it real customized. So that's job benchmarking, not to be confused with salary benchmarking, which is a whole different deal.
Yeah.
But this is actually benchmarking what the behaviors, motivators, soft skills are that
thank you
will
for
make
that.
somebody succeed.
That is a wonderful piece of information. That is kind of thrown around a lot, and thank you for clearing that up. Either one of you, Jackie or Alex, what do you think? And of course, this is a very slippery slope in HR. What isn't? What do you think about background checking? Do you, either one of you, would you recommend it? Alex, do you use it? Is it something you find valuable?
Yeah, so we currently don't background check. We do Google search. We check out the social media pages, we check out the LinkedIn profile, and we do call references. And if they were referred to us by an employee, you know, we typically value that employee's opinion of the applicant. So in short answer, we don't typically run background. But there's so much data available on the internet.
But so I want to interrupt, because from a legal standpoint in the hiring process, they say that doing Google searches and what is a no-no. So
I said slippery slope.
that's why I wanted to interrupt and tell our audience,
Be careful.
whether you do that or whether you don't be talking about that to anyone, because you really are not supposed to utilize that information. You can do background checks. As of New York City is different than other places. You cannot do background checks until you have hired someone, actually, which is kind of interesting. And that, I think, is going to become New York State rule. I think it has its place. Certainly, Alex, you are doing background checks by calling, checking the references. That is a background check on them. So that is something that we highly advise. And when you have your own employees, you need to instruct them, if somebody calls them for a background check, what they should and should not say. If they, my advice is that they can say what the job title they had was, and when they left, and that's about it.
That's very important.
Well, Rita, now that I know that this is being recorded, and I'm, want to correct the record and correct my statement, we don't Google search anybody. I don't know what you're talking about. We don't do any of that.
Good job. Good job, Alex.
Well, Jackie brings up a good point. We live in a very litigious society, and there are so many rules and regulations, and that's why I have a job. That's why Jackie has a job. And Alex, you have a job because we need insurance, EPLI, against all of the things that go on.
Right.
So we're all here to do the right thing for the people and have the right, and background checks. I knew it was a tricky question because it's a tricky answer. You've got to be very careful with the information that you gather. So thank you, Jackie and Alex. I really appreciate that. I have a question, I think, that is so important. It may be the last one. We're almost out of time. All of what we're talking about with the hiring, with getting on any of the technical sites, with doing your onboarding, with having a person And we did touch about it, having a person come into your employ and then not working out, maybe for the first 2, 3, 4 weeks. I'm telling you, if you can feel it in the first few weeks, don't ignore it. But Jackie, to you, how expensive is it when you pick the wrong person? A mishire. What exactly is the cost of all of the time and energy spent on somebody that just doesn't quite make it?
Well, it's big. And if you want, I offer to you, if you want to go on effectivehiring.com, there is a mishire calculator where you can put the salary in there and the benefits and how long it's going to take you to figure it out. But it can be for a $50,000 position, it can be cost you $75,000. And the reason the cost is so high is not their salary, but and not the benefits, but what you've invested in training is a big expense. But the other thing is that you have mistakes made that may cost you business if they're the wrong person. You have the missed opportunity costs of having the right person in there. So really getting some, having a process and talking about it with people, or if you don't, get some expert advice and to figure out what that process is going to be is really, really important. And then don't hang on to them, hire slowly, fire quickly. Once you have made the decision, I don't mean day one, you don't like the color of their earrings. I'm talking about you give them a good chance, you set up expectations, they're not meeting them all along. Handwriting's on the wall. Don't make yourself crazy. I know people who hire are like, oh, thank goodness, I finally have somebody I can go back, stop doing hiring tasks and go back to doing my regular job. And the pain of having to go through hiring again, I'm just going to hang on. Maybe they'll get better.
Not.
Not.
And not only with skills, and this has to do with retaining and culture. How many times do I hear from clients that are having employee issues with a person, but they do the job so well, and in the meantime, creating complete havoc throughout the entire organization with their conversations, with their comments, with their negativity. There are ways to deal with that, and that's an entirely different presentation. But
so, Rita, just a quickie. You can make a 4-quadrant little graph XY, and the X is the culture or the performance, how good they perform. Are they performing really well or are they not? And then the Y is the culture. And if they are high performers, low culture, we call those terrorists. Because just for that reason, it's painful to get rid of them because they're, it's somebody that's low performance, low culture, no problem. They're easy to fire. High culture, low performance, we call those puppies. We need to maybe invest more in training because they're the culture that we want. And then, of course, you have your stars, high performance, high culture. But, yeah.
You bring up a very good point, Jackie.
Take a look at where those people are and buck up and get rid of them.
And then the good people in your organization will say, what took them so long?
Exactly.
And I will tell you again, from an HR person that's been in it for 25 years, when I interview people, I look for the positive attitude, even though they don't have the skill. And you can always teach a positive person a skill, but you cannot teach a negative person to be positive, no matter how
Correct.
you try. It is part of their personality. It is part of how they think, and that's fine. We're not condemning that, but it may not belong in your organization. It is definitely something that spreads. And then what you find in toxicity, you're retaining the wrong people, because the good people stay in a great environment, and the negativity will leave because they cannot grow there. And just the opposite, where your good people will leave, where the toxicity stays. So that's a tip from, I think, all of us. Don't put up with any of that. You're the boss, you have the right. And it is, unfortunately, when you have a good performer, it is painful and expensive and time consuming to hire a new person. But we're talking about your business and the future of your business. And as we started this seminar, people are the crux of who you are, and you want them to represent, especially Alex. I think, you know, when your people are on the phone with clients, you don't have eyes in back of your head. You need to depend on the fact that they're representing who you are.
That's right.
So we have a few more minutes. Is there anything, Alex, you'd like to wrap up with? You've given us some wonderful ideas, and I'm not kidding. You sound like you're right. You've got everything going here.
Sure. So I'd like to actually commend one of the attendees, because while we're on this, and of course I have like 5 monitors going at the same time. Lisa Cohen just LinkedIn me. So if you're not LinkedIn people right now, you should be. So kudos to you, Lisa. That's like a go-getter attitude. That's something that I would value, knowing that I'm a panelist and I'm actually seeing live what's going on right now, that she's connecting with me offline. So that's the type of person I look at and say, that is the person I want a part of my team. So I wanted to send that good vibes to Lisa for that. But that aside, I'm gonna give you a couple of resources. I'm gonna link in the chat box a couple of resources, 2 books that I would highly recommend. They're easy read, short read, small little book. One is called, what is it? I'm sorry, the name just escapes me. I actually had it pulled up on my computer here. I'm sorry, just.
I love when young people forget.
Sorry, I'm sorry. You notice I know the author's name. It's John Maxwell, and it's he has a leadership book that I would highly recommend. And I'm embarrassed that I'm fumbling with the name of it right now. So I'm just Googling it as we speak right now.
Okay.
It's 5 Levels of Leadership by John C. Maxwell. And it's also How Successful People Lead. Those are the 2 books I'd recommend. How Successful People Lead is a great book. It talks about 5 stages of leadership. And it's a really quick read. I strongly recommend that any employer or manager read this book. If you are an employer and you have managers that are managing people, make them read this book as part of their curriculum or their job test. And I'll just go through them really quickly because I know we have like 7 minutes to kind of wrap up. But there's 5 stages. Positional is, I'm your boss, do what I say because I'm your boss. Nobody likes that leader. It's, I have to follow you what I do. The second is a permission leadership, meaning, hey, I trust you, and therefore I'm going to follow you. Okay, so that's huge. I like that. Building that trust factor up is going to build a great rapport with the chain of command. The second stage is production leadership. So, hey, I like you, and you produce. You're a person that actually can do the widget or make the widget. You make the widget well. So I trust you, I like you, and you can do the task that I'm supposed to be doing really well. So that's stage 3. Stage 4 is, hey, this person empowers me, teaches me to make the widget well. So I trust the person, they can make it. Not only are they my boss, but they're helping me be better at making the widget. And that's stage 4 leadership. That's awesome. And that's what is very challenging to get to. And of course, the stage 5, the highest, is called pinnacle leadership. And it's basically people follow you for who you are, what you represent, and then you embrace and you emboss all of the 4 stages below you, naturally you can rise up and down that kind of path of leadership, and it's very challenging to stay at the top. It's really fluid as you deal with employees one-on-one basis. So one person may not be receiving your information and may not see that you're being successful in certain skill sets, where others may disagree and think that you're very successful, or they trust you, or you have a great communication with them. So that's kind of like this How Successful People Lead book will talk about how it works. I strongly recommend it. John C. Maxwell. I'll put it in the chat feature. The other one is what we talked about earlier, and I can tell Jackie read the book. It's called Monday Morning Leadership. It basically talks about hiring slow, firing quickly. It talks about the value of effective communication. It talks about people quit managers or companies before they quit the actual organization. They don't quit the company, they quit the manager, they quit the boss. So it talks about that. It's also, like I said, a quick read, not very long. You probably do it in a couple hours. But those are the 2 resources I would strongly recommend. Managers, bosses, if you're overseeing people, I would strongly recommend you read those books. Look, it's a struggle. It's a struggle for me. I'm not perfect every single day. And, I admit to my staff, I don't know sometimes the answers. I don't know what I'm doing all the time. But you know what? In Angela Ducksworthy's comment, you kind of fake it till you make it sometimes. And if you're transparent with your team, they're going to respect you for it. Nobody likes to know it all, and they're going to respect when you are humble and say, hey, what do you think?
Let me jump in here and say, HR, whether it's hiring or whether it's HR in general, the rules and laws change on a monthly basis.
Hourly sometimes.
Hourly sometimes. Get advice from someone as to what the best ways to do hiring and HR are within your organization.
I like that. Alex, you wrapped it up beautifully. I think that you're absolutely right. We don't know it all. And quite frankly, moderating this panel today gave me a rash because I'm pushing buttons here I've never pushed before. I'm looking at Q&A, but it is something I learned and I can do it again next time. So that's a very good example that when you don't know something, dive into it, because when you leave the pool, you've learned something else.
Yeah, take
Jackie,
it until you make it.
Exactly. And there are so many challenges ahead of us. We never knew when we started 2020 how very different we would have to do our jobs, how very different hiring is, how very different everything is. And I see Ariana back on the screen, who is ready to say goodbye to everybody. But I cannot thank Jackie and Alex more for the wonderful advice you gave our members. And I think that they're going away with a few aha moments, because I know I did. So yeah, thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Alex. Ariana, say goodbye. And thank you, Ariana, for your help.
Thank you. Thank you to our great panelists. Thank you, Rita, for moderating. I've added in the chat the link that will take you right back to our virtual exhibit hall. If you haven't checked out the exhibitors yet, please do so. Today is the last day for it, and they are fantastic. So thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.